In Mamorim Meluket, we'll do the 17th Maimer in Chelik Aleph. The Rebbe said this in Shabbos Parshas Hazinu, which was Yud Gimel Tishrei, on the yahrzeit of the Rebbe Maharash, in the Yirei Tovshin Chavtes. It's a little bit different than some of the other Mugadik Mamorim. This is a Hanocha. Sometimes it's Hanocha. Uh, the Maimer is Knesher Yoir Kinoi. Goymer Yisoyu al Evrosoi. It's different. First of all, it's not separated into paragraphs. It also doesn't say over here when it was published because apparently it was looked over by the Rebbe at the time. I'm not sure about that, but there is no usually in the beginning of every mimer they tell you when it was published, but this doesn't have a publication date. So apparently this was a hanocha that the Rebbe just looked over. It's part of the Mukadik Mamorim, and they left it as hanocha. Hanocha means that they put down on writing, committed to writing that which the Rebbe said. So again, I got to look up to see the history behind this mimer exactly, but this was in Shabbos Parshas Hazino Yud Gimel Tishrei and Tovshin Chavtes. So we'll do the mimer inside. So the pasuk talks about in the Shiras Hazino, it's talking about the Eibishter's relationship to the Yidden. It is Knesher Yoir Kinoi. The Eibishter treats us in the same way as the eagle wakes up his nest, his eaglets, the little eagles in the nest. Rashi points out it does it with great compassion. It doesn't approach it at once, so not to frighten them. And then Yisoeyu alev rosi. What's unique about the eagle that he carries them on top of his body. Most of the birds, Rashi explains, carry their young by their feet because they're all worried that somebody bigger will come and snatch them if they carry them on their back. So they carry them underneath. The eagle doesn't worry of this. But in any event, the eagle represents the idea of compassion and actually great compassion. When we need great compassion from Hashem is when we do tshuva, and if we made mistakes, and then we return to Hashem, and we ask Hashem for great compassion. Over here, as the Rebbe will teach from the Frierdiker Rebbe, that through the level of teshuva and through the level of great compassion, the person reaches, so he's carried on top of Evrosei. Evrosei would be the level of Torah mitzvahs, which is the limbs. The Ramach Pikudim is Ramach Evorim de Malka. So when you do a mitzvah, you are sort of connecting to the body of the Eibishter of Hashem, sort of the Odom, as we have in Atzilus, which has the shape of B'Tzalmenu in the image, right, left, the middle, Chesed, the Meichid. This is like a Odom, but the level of Rachamim Rabim is Aleph Rasa. He's actually into Keser, which is higher than that. And that comes through the level of Rachamim Rabim. Let's look inside. Do Hapiru Shel Bal Ha'ilula. So it's known the interpretation of the ones whose yahrzeit, that's the Hilula yahrzeit of the Rebbe Maharash. So he says, Shenesher hu bechinas rachamim. That Nesher is the level of compassion. And when we say Nesher Yoir, wake up, that's even a higher level, not just rachamim, not just compassion. That would be great compassion. So maybe rachamim would be the level of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes would be Rachamim regular. But when we talk about higher than Hishtalshalus, Alev Rosei, that's Rachamim Rabim, that comes from the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, that comes from the Yud Gimel Tikunei Dikna, which is the level of Keser, which is higher. Nesher Ya'ir is the level of Rachamim Rabim. Umashekosov Yisraeu Alev Rosei. So what does it mean? He carries on top of his body over Evrosei. Shem has no body or no image of a body. What does it mean? He carries us, the Jewish people, over his body. The body references the level of Torah de Pikudim, the Adam, the image of the Adam, which is in the world of Atzilus, and this is Alev Rasi on top of it. So Av Shein Leguf Ein Musaguf, there has no body and no image of a body. So what does it mean that he carries him over the body? Hu kizois haTorah Adam, because the Torah, which has the mitzvahs in it, that is compared to an Adam, which means Hu inyan. What is the Adam of Torah? That's the Ramach Evorim, the Malka. Those are the 248 limbs of the king, Hanasim al Yidei Ramach Pikudim. They are made up through the 248 mitzvahs. When a Yid does a mitzvah, he's mamshich from the higher level into Atzilus. He is mamshich the Evorim, that there should be limbs. He's mamshich in, and he sort of makes up this Adam, Sha'idei Kiyum HaMitzvahs, when a Yid fulfills through performance of the mitzvahs, Maleh Ali Aleichem Ki'ilu Asuni, I will consider it of you as if you have made me. So that means from the Zohar that if when a Yid does mitzvahs, he basically makes up the Adam, this Siyur Adam in the worlds above. So that is not an image of a person, it's the makeup that comes through Ramach Pikudim, the Ramach Yevorim, the Malka. So this is the idea that he carries them on top of Evrose, on top of the body, because of this great compassion, which is the level of Nesher, which is higher than regular Rachamim, but it's the Rachamim Rabim, and that's the level of Nesher, Hinei al Yidei HaTshuva, through the Tshuva, that the Yid does, Nase ha'ilu l'maylo mibchinas ramach evorim de malka shodei hamitzvahs. That brings about Aleph Rosei. It brings it higher level than the level of the 248 limbs of the king, which is through mitzvahs. That's why you say Aleph Rosei. So the mitzvahs, that reaches in, and that makes up the evorim de malka, the in the world of Atzilus. But this is Aleph Rosei, which is on top, which is already in the level of Keser. Masim imamavur b'Kabbalah. And this fits with what's explained in the Kabbalah. Because over there in the Kabbalah, it talks about that the Chayes HaMerkava, these animals that we have in the Merkava, the Pnei Nesher and the Pnei Aryeh and Pnei Shoyer, they really are rooted all the ways in higher than Atzilus. They're in the Yud Kimul Tikunei Dikna, the higher in the level of Chitzonius HaKesed, in the level of Arich. This fits with what's explained in the Kabbalah. The Chayis HaMerkove Bohem Meir Yud Kimul Tikunei Dikna, that the animals that are listed by the Markova in them, even though they are in Bria, but they get from the 13 Tikunei Dikna, the 13 strands of the beard, which is the same synonymous with Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim. That's the Rachamim Rabim. That's in higher than Hishtalshalus, the 13 Tikunei Dikna. And in a way, the Nesher is not only in Chitzonius HaKeser, not only in the 13 strands and the Yud Gimel Sarachim, but it's actually in Atik in Pnimis HaKeser, which is higher. Ulamaila Yoser, and even higher, the Chayis Merkava, as explained in Kabbalah, comes Bechlal from the Yud Gimel Tikkun Dikna, that would be Chitzonius HaKeser, that would be the level of Arich, but higher even than that is the Nefsher. The Nesher reaches up even to the level of Atik, Pnimius HaKeser, who bechinas Atik. The level of Atik means that it's removed totally. Shenetag v'nivdal mikol seder hayishtalshlus. It's removed and is separate from the entire order of the hishtalshlus. So lachein, and because we're talking about such a high level, there is no limitations. Like this, our connection to the Eibishter is when we do Torah mitzvahs. That's a measure. So how could we connect? And the Torah mitzvah is also limited. But when we get Nesher, we get the level of Rachamim Rabim through Tshuva, then we don't have any limitations. Even though we violated, we've gone away, we still are able to connect and get from the Eibishter. The Eibishter carries an olive rossi higher than Torah mitzvahs. Said, Chen mitzad b'china zu. Because of the level of Atik, which is the level of Nesher, ein shum medidos v'hagbalos. There is no measure, there's no limitations. Gam loy hamedides shebemadreges hachi elyonis shebeseder hishtalshlus. It doesn't even have the measure of the highest level of hishtalshlus. So if it's within the hishtalshlus, Atzilus and Bechlal, the general hishtalshlus, this is beyond the level of Atik, Netak. Ad Gam Lamdidus Torah Mitzvahs doesn't even have the measure of Torah Mitzvahs, and therefore it atones for Torah Mitzvahs. That's why, because of this level of Atik, he carries him over the level of Torah mitzvahs, over the body, alav rosi. The body would be Torah mitzvahs. That would be the level of Atzilus, or at least level of Ishtalshlus, which can also include Chitzonius HaKeser. But this is Atik. This is totally removed beyond Ishtalshlus. It doesn't have a shaykhus even to Ishtalshlus. While Chitzonius HaKeser is higher than Ishtalshlus, but has a connection to Ishtalshlus, Atik is totally removed. That's the chelik of the Boirem, so it's removed from Ishtalshlus Torah, and that's why that revelation, when Nesher Ya'ir Kinoi, the Eibishter gives the Rachamim Rabim, it goes much higher, Alav Rosi, higher than Torah Mitzvahs. V'yesh Loimar, B'derech Efsher. And the Rebbe says that's why we read it Naseris Tshuva and Yom Kippur, because we've done the Tshuva, and that's how we reach to this level. That's why we read always Hazino, either Naseris Tshuva or sometimes even after Yom Kippur. V'yesh Loimar, B'derech Efsher, we can say, possibly the Rebbe adds to what the Rebbe Marash said, that this is also the reason Mashekoirim Parshas Ha'azinu that we read the portion of Hazinu during the 10 days of Tshuva, I take of Acharei Yom Kippurim, or immediately after Yom Kippur. Ki oz hu zman haTshuva, because Seris Tshuva and Yom Kippur is a time for Tshuva, which means, therefore, that we have to go higher than Torah Mitzvah, because the person is forgiven. We get the Nesher Ya'ir Kinoi, because if he violated and he missed out, Asher Gam Mishachota, even one who has sinned. Now, when we say sin, it could be literally Bein Chet Kipshut. It would mean a sin violated, a violation of a mitzvah, a command, or a loisa said. But also, Chet can mean lacking, meaning it's not a literal sin. Ubein chet meloshen chesoron could be a chet from the language that is lacking. Kameshikosu, we find the word chet meaning lacking. When she was coming, Bathsheba was coming to King to David HaMelech to plead that the kingdom should go to her son Shlomo, And she was saying that Adonio, the other people, they became, they want to take over the government. And she uses the Lashon, Aniu b'ni shloima chatoim, me and my son Shloima will be chatoim. Chatoim means we'll be missing, we'll miss out on this whole continuation of the kingdom of the David HaMelech. So therefore, you see that the word chatoim can mean lacking. So on Yom Kippur, we do tshuva to make up for sins literally, or even if we haven't sinned literally, things that we need to make up. V'hainu, so what does it make up? That the person is lacking in his wholesome, in his avodah, in a mitzad agilu de b'chinas nesher. So because of the revelation of the level of nesher, so therefore, because of the revelation of Nesher, this Rachamim Rabim, so through tshuva you get the aliyah even higher than the level of Evrose. So the Rebbe continues, but since all Chayis HaMerkava are, all the animals are in the Yud Kimul Tikkun Dikna, are in the level of Keser, which is higher than Torah Mitzvahs, so why does the Pasuk only attribute it to Nesher? Now, while Knesher reaches even higher, because in Atik, as we said, but we're also talking about the Nesher the way it's here. What's the connection? As we'll see, the Rebbe talks about the Nesher is in the middle of the Merkava. The Rebbe talks about Yaakov, which is the middle of the forefathers. He talks about the Bria Chaticha, and he talks about the middle, the Kav HaMtzoyi, that goes all the ways from the top to the bottom. But more than that, that even on the bottom, the middle line remains as potent when it goes down as it was on the top. Whereas the other Amshachas, they diminish, they lose some of their potency as they're descending. But the Chiddush, as the Rebbe will explain, that even in here, over here in the world, and the Rebbe said Nesher means Noshar, when it falls down, it still has that connection to this level of higher than Ishtalshalus, which brings it or allows it to turn around from the sins to mitzvah, as we will see inside. But let's just go step by step. But we need to understand Mashakosov Knesher Davker. Why does it say specifically uses the eagle? But isn't all the four animals that are in the chariot? You have the Pnei Aryeh, you have the lion, you have the Pnei Shor, you have the face of the ox, you have Pnei Nesher, you have the face of the eagle. The other one is the Adam, but the three animals over there, three of the four, one of them is Adam, are all B'Yud Gimel Tikkunei Dikna that have been brought before from the Kabbalah. They all are the 13 strands of the beard, which means they're in the higher level of Atzilus. They're in Keser, in Chitzenis HaKeser, in the Yud Gimel Tikkunei Dikna, Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim. So all of them. V'lo Omer Knesher Davke. Why does it say Davke Knesher? Now, even though Nesher goes even higher, but why do we need to go to that higher level? So Ba'av Shebechinas Nesher Kan. Even though we're saying that they get the level of Nesher, meaning they get the level of Atik, because Nesher goes up all the ways to Atik. So that's higher than the other, than the Pnei Shoir and the Pnei Aryeh. They're only Chitzonis HaKeser. Atik Uneftak v'nivdal mikol seder ha'ishtalshlus, that is removed and separate from the entire order of ishtalshlus. Umikol shikein, so Memela, he's on a higher level. That's why we have the Nesher, and that's why it's Aleph Rossi. It's a higher level. So for sure, therefore, it's removed and it's separate from the world of Bria. Shesham ba'olam habriya, udalat chayis hamerkava, and in olam habriya we have the 4 chayis of the merkava. So it is going to be higher than Hishtalshlus, and it's going to be, and we understand that that's where the connection comes. From the fact that it says K'nesher Madam is b'chinas atik u'b'chinas rachamim shalamaylo l'nesher, but the fact that he's comparing, when he's talking about atik, he's talking about the great compassion. He's talking about the nesher. So yes, this is atik, but he's still referencing atik by using the language of nesher. That nesher is it. So. So that means that he is comparing it not to some nesher which is atik, which is higher, the way it's in the merkava, and not nesher the way it's on the higher level, not the source of nesher which is in the merkava, but nesher the way it's in the merkava, not in atik. Until the nesher is a comparison, because you're saying like a nesher, like the physical. So the Rebbe wants to say there is something about the nesher yorkina in the pasuk, which is not just saying, well, this is atik. It is saying something about the nesher that we know, the nesher that we can associate with. This is the physical nesher. So first of all, when the pasuk says K'nesher, he's not just talking about atik. He must be talking also about the nesher, which is in Ishtashel, which would be nesher merkava, which would be in bria. Also comparing it to the gashmis, the K'nesher. There's something about it, and the idea is because a nesher here in this physical world is considered to be a compassionate versus the raven, which is considered to be cruel. That the physical eagle below is a compassionate, which is opposite of the raven. So what is the comparison? K'nesher, not the atik, is comparing it to lamato shurachmoni hu medames b'chinas racham rabim shalamaylo. He compares the great rachamim of above to the nesher lamato. So don't answer me that the reason why he's saying the nesher, because nesher hints to the level of atik, which is the source which it reaches, but the fact that the pasuk says K'nesher, we're talking about the nesher that we know, nesher ishtalshlus, nesher that we know. As the Rebbe will explain, that even the nesher begashmis has the potency of the nesher above, as the Rebbe will explain later on in the Maimer. But the question is, lechatchila, why are we comparing it only to the nesher? Why not compare it to the other things? And the fact that they have a shirish, everybody has a shirish. What's the comparison to the nesher over here, lamato? Okay, that's the question. So the Rebbe is going to talk about that the nesher is in the middle, and we're talking about, and because it's the middle, that's why we're talking about the nesher, and that's why it has the special application to what we're discussing over here. The idea is when we talk about the 4 animals that are in the chariot, in the vision of Yecheskel. So over there it says that the Pnei Aryeh El Hayamin, the face of the lion is on the right side. Upanei shoir, the face of the ox is masmel, is on the left side. Upanei nesher ubeemtza, the face of the eagle is in the middle. So if you want to compare this, as we say, Ovis Heinena Merkava, that also the forefathers wore the Merkava, they wore a Merkava to godliness, as the chariot is a subjugation and a carriage to Hashem, to the Odom ala Kisei, that they are subjugated. So we know the fathers are. So we have Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Who is compared to whom? So Avram is the right, Yitzchak is the left, and Yaakov is the middle. So he is compared to the Nesher. Shebezem, move on. So from this is understood. Shepnei Nesher be'inyan ha'avis heinen amerkava. So what is the face of the eagle when we talk it in the aspect of the fathers, which are the chariot? Yaakov, that would be the measure of Yaakov, which would be Kava Tzoyi. That would be the middle line. Yaakov is the middle. Why is Yaakov the middle? Because we know Shavrom hu b'kava yamin. Avram is on the right side. Yitzchak b'kava shmuel. Yitzchak is on the left side. Yaakov b'kava Tzoyi, and Yaakov is on the middle side. So you have Avram to the right, Yitzchak to the left. So the Nesher, which is the middle, that's Yaakov. And this also fits in with the verse, the Knesher Yorkina. Before that, it says the idea of Yaakov, as the Rebbe will elaborate also later more. This is also the flow, the continuation of the verses here. The pasuk says, "Kichelek havaye amoy Yaakov chevel machalosei gomer." The people, the Yidden, are part of Hashem, and the Yidden as Yaakov are the rope of Hashem's inheritance. We'll touch it out all later. And then it says, K'nesher yoir kinei, like an eagle, like an eagle. So we're seeing that the Yaakov precedes the Nesher yoir kinei, like an eagle wakes up his nest. The Inyan, K'nesher yoir kinei bo behemshech liYaakov gomer. The idea of Nesher yoir kinei comes a continuation to Yaakov. V'lochein oimer K'nesher dafke. That's why it says K'nesher. Shehu midoseh shel Yaakov. Nesher, that's the character, that's the measure of Yaakov. Because we want Yaakov. That's the ultimate. That's the most complete. That's the measure of Yaakov. And the Nesher is Yaakov, is the measure of Yaakov. Ki Yaakov ushlimo da'abahon. Yaakov is considered to be the complete of the fathers, and he has the greatest from Avram and Yitzchak, and therefore it's the level of Yaakov, and that's what is the Nesher, and that's why we say Nesher Yoir Kinai. And here we're going to explain what's the advantage of Yaakov, what's the advantage of the middle, what's the reason why we say K'nesher Yoir Kinai, because it's dafke in the middle that we can get, even at the bottom, even when it goes down, it still stays potent, and it can go up to the top, and that's why you can take the negative, you're still connected, even as we will see. To explain the idea, what is the mile advantage of the middle line? Hine Yadua, we know, it's known, that the middle line is the bar that went through from one end to the other end. So the Mishkan, the way it was built, it had bars that held together the Amudim, and you had 3 bars, and the top and the bottom bars that held together the walls from each side. But then you had a middle one, which was inside in the middle of the beams, and that went through miraculously. It snaked around from one end and it came to the other side all around. It had one long bar, which was again like it's a big miracle, and that tied it all together. So that means that the Bria Chatichen, it goes through from one end of the Mishkan all the way to the other end. So what's this idea going from one end to the other end? So the Rebbe says two inyonim. One inyan that it can go very far, from very high up to very low, which means from one end to the other end. But it's more than that, that it keeps its potency, the middle one, that as it is in the top, it goes down to the bottom. Let's look inside. Hine you there's two ideas. Inyan Aleph, number one is min kotza yeser elyon ad kotza yeser tacht. The middle line, he goes through, snakes through from the edge, which is the highest, and it goes all the way to ad kotza yeser tacht. The other ones just took one side; they don't go all the way. So the kav that is in the middle goes all the way from the top all the way to the bottom. Oh, kamoi. As the middle bar in the Mishkan, it snaked through from one corner of the Mishkan to the opposite corner. That's why the length of the bar was 72, because when you took all the sides together, the three sides that had walls, the front was the curtain, but the three walls altogether was 72 amas snaked through. The Kamaikain who bekavaham tzoy. Same thing is when we have a middle line, this was going basically horizontally. But when you do vertically, when we say going from the top to the bottom, the same thing is the middle one. Shu mavriach min kotza yeser elyon. It snakes from the edge, which is the highest, at kitzeya yeser tacht, until the edge, which is the lowest. So the reason it goes from the highest to the lowest, it's for the same reason. Because it goes highest, it goes to the lowest. So that's why Ushnei in Yonim Elu. And these two think going the highest to the lowest, that it goes from the upper edge to the lower edge. Soon we'll talk about the second Inyan, which is in Emtsoi. This is just within the point number one, which is that it goes from top to the bottom. It means the reason why it can go all the ways down is because it goes from very high up. These are tluyim zebazet, that hinges. The liyois azer nemt from the milo, since he takes from the highest level and it reaches all the way to the top, lochenu nimshach ad lamata mata. Then that's why it can go down all the ways to the bottom. Something which is all the ways on the top can go down all the ways to the bottom. And the depth, whether it's deep on top or it's deep on the bottom, depth and the depth are connected. As it's known that the depth of the height and the depth of the below are connected to each other. The Kamekain who gam ba'aveda. This is actually also in the service to Hashem. The depth are connected. When you cry out to Hashem from the depth of your heart, you get to the depth of Hashem, to the highest level, not just to the level of Hashem, but to the depth of Hashem. The Kamekenu gam ba'avodah. Same thing is in avodah. From the depth I call out to you, Hashem. Asher ha'avodah Shemibchinas emek lifnim einek. The avoda, which is depth inside depth. Shezo inyan ma'amakim l'shon rabim k'dis b'zoyer, which is the idea ma'amakim. The Zoyer says, why does it say ma'amakim, not ma'omek krosi, but it's in ma'amakim krosicha? Because it's deeper and deeper. It's the lowest. It's the deeper and deeper. Shalomati in avoda zu magas lebchinas emek shalomayla. Shalomayla. This service reaches the depth of above, from the lowest to the ad. When you call out to Hashem from the lowest places in the depth of your heart, then you can get to the highest places. Ad lishleimus hamlechila slicha v'kapora the Yom Kippurim. That you reach it all the ways that you get the complete, the wholesome forgiveness, atonement of Yom Kippur is lifnei Havaya. It's before Havaya. Why? How do you go before Havaya higher than Havaya? Is because it comes from Mamakim, it comes from the depth. Ba'ad lebchinas, to the level, not only lifnei Havaya, till you can reach the level v'ruach toshav el Elokim asher nesana, that the spirit returns to Elokim that gave it, which means all the ways from where the neshama comes from. That's how far deep you reach. Which is in the in the portion of Hazin. So the first inyan is that the height, it comes from very high, goes very low, and the Rebbe says it's connected, because the reason it can go very low is because it comes from very high, and the very low reaches very high, and the very high comes down to very low, because there's a connection, because this depth are connected. That's why mima makim, then you get to the level of lifnei havaya, and even to Elokim asher nesana. That's one area in the kav. The second idea about the middle line, that from the top to the bottom is equal. There's no changes. It doesn't change as it's descending down. It still remains with its full strength. What is the reason that there's no changes? Because he snakes from the most upper corner point. That's the reason it can go very low. That's why everywhere it's the same, because it's a place which is higher, and that's why it comes down lower. It's insignificant to the place which is higher, the level, and that's why it can go down all the ways low, and it remains in its potency, which is unlike the other lines. This is the middle line. The right and the left, they are limited. We speak the kava yimin, the kava smoil. Talk about the right and the left. They don't go high and don't go on the bottom, but also they diminish as they go down. The kava yimin, the kava small. They're only rays. The nature of a ray is that a ray, the further it goes, the less light there is. So that's the natural, because they are just ha'ores, they're rays. They're not like the kav hamtsoyi, which goes all the ways to the essence, to the highest place. This is only ha'ores, the sides, the right and the left. Hina seder b'ha'ores oirhu. So the order when it shines the light is shekol mashe nimshach lamata yoser mismayet. The more that it extends lower, it diminishes and it changes. Hashem ken kav hamtsoyi osanemt from the milo kinal. As opposed to the middle line, he takes from higher and higher. That's not from a ha'ora. He takes from the higher level, as we said before. Where does it reach? Ukiyudua asheragam shekol hakavim magim ba'keser. Even though the three lines, three lines would be the way in Atzilus, the way it's divided. Chochma to the right, and Bina to the left, Chesed to the right, Gvura to the left. Those are lines in Atzilus, and all these lines reach up to higher than Atzilus into Kesed. So Gam Shekol Kavim Magim Keser, even though all these lines reach up to Keser, but they only go to Arich, to the externality of Keser. So therefore, they're diminishing as they come down. But the middle line, that comes to the inner of Keser. Inner of Keser, that's the level of Atik. That's why it's at the end, he's just like in the beginning. There is no change. It's always the same because it comes from the higher level and it's not the ha'ara, it doesn't change. And the Rebbe gives an example. This is also the way the human body is set up, also has right, left, and middle, that the hand and the foot over there, as it goes down, it diminishes, the right side, the left side. But the middle, the head is directly connected to the Yesod, and it's all really one. Same thing is also in the shape of the human body. This is actually in the image of above. So let's make a man in our image look alike, so we know that our bodies reflect the way it's in Atzilus. Okasiv, and the pasuk says, Nasa Odom. So let's make man, which means let's make, meaning it has the three kavim. It's a plural. It's not just one. As explained in the previous Mamorim, as they reference at the bottom over here, the Mamorim that Rebbe explains there. Gambo Yeshna Gimel Kavim. That's why the person also has the three kavim, the Nasim. Let's make him from the three kavim. Yad Yimin v'Regel Yimin. He has the right hand and the right foot. Shubchina Dugmas Kava Yimin Shalomaylo. That is similar to the right line above. Yad Smol v'Regel Smol. The left hand and the left foot. Shudugmas Kava Smol Shalomaylo. That's similar to the left line above. And then you have Rosh Kuf v'Yisoid, the head, the body, and the Yisoid. Shudugmas Kava Mtsoy Shalomaylo. That is similar to the middle line from above. So the right side, by the body of the person, between on the right side and the left side, there is changes. There's not the same. The hand and the feet, there's differences. Especially when we talk about the nails, they're only secondary to the person. But when we're talking about the middle, the head with the yisoid, how do you do be'inyan ein kishui elo l'das? It says that the way you harden is only with das, which means that what happens to the yisoid is because it's connected to the das. Instantly, as soon as there is an arousal in the mind, which in your knowledge, in your brain, at that exact moment, the Yisod is aroused. It's connected, but the surface of Torah, as explained in the addendum, the additions to the Torah. So we see that the right and the left, it diminishes, but the head and the middle stays the same. Same thing is true with the three lines above. The two lines, the right and the left, we call it chad arich v'chad kitzir. One is long and one is short, meaning as we see in the Tikkun Zohar, same pasuk Eliyahu, which means that there is changes. It's not not the same the whole way. That's if you talk about right or the left. Hey mismatim mishtanim, they diminish and they change. Mashenk and kavah tzoi, as opposed to the middle line, which is the chad beinoni, the middle way. Shumareshu ba'atzoifa b'shova, he is from the top to the bottom, he's equal. Okay, so now we know that there is an advantage also in the middle because that it is stays as it's above, and as opposed to the sides which diminish, and that's why we see the Rebbe says we find that it's Davke Yaakov that all of his children, meaning as it were descendants from him, they're all tzaddikim mitos shlema, as opposed to Avram and Yitzchak, they had children which went away because it diminished. It says that's the reason why Avram is the middle, Yaakov is the middle, the wholesome. And this is the advantage of Yaakov, which is the middle line, which is the more wholesome of the fathers. His bed was complete. He had all of his children. Avraham yotza mimenu Yishmael. Avraham, Yishmael descended of him. Yitzchak yotza mimenu Esav, and Yitzchak, Esav came from him. Now it wasn't them. Yotza means they left him, so it went away from them. So doesn't reflect them themselves, but still the fact that it's only that it left them, but it's not they themselves stayed. But still, it still went out of them. So therefore, it diminished. So why did it happen to Avram and Yitzchak and not to Yaakov? They're on the right and the left sides. These sides, these two lines, the more they go down lower, they are diminished. So because of the diminishing, after the diminishing that comes at the end, once it comes down, so then as an exit from it, to leave Abraham and Yitzchak, they could have Yishmael and Esau, they left them because it diminished. Since he is in the middle line, there was no changes. His bed, his children were all complete. That even as it came down below, in his bed, meaning his children, descendants, is in total completeness, total wholesomeness. This is why Yaakov, the middle line, that is the advantage of the middle, the second point of the middle, that even when it comes down, it still stays full. That's why the children were all tzaddikim, as opposed to the right and the left side, which is diminishes as it goes down. And that's why the second Mila of Amtsoi, first of all, it goes from the top to the bottom. So it goes to, in this case, it goes all the way up to Atik, and it can go down all the way to the bottom. And the second thing is that it remains potent as it goes down, as it's in the top. And that's why from Yaakov doesn't come out anything bad, as opposed to Avraham and Yitzchak comes out Yishmael and Esav. The Rebbe brings now in from the Kisva Rizal the way he explains the Pasuk in Mishlei. With the fact that we just explained the difference between the left, right, and in the middle, so now we will understand why Shlomo HaMelech was wondering in Mishlei about the Nesher. So it says like this: in Mishlei it says Shloima Shloisha Heimo Niflu Mimeni Varbo Lo Yedaitim. He lists. He says 3, 4. It says 3, 4. It means really 4, but the way it's written in Tanakh, it's written 3 plus 4. I mean, 3, 4. Four things I don't know. And one of the first things he says is derech hanesher bashamayim, derech nochash al tzur, derech ani b'lev yom, and derech gever b'alma. He was asking about these 4 things he doesn't understand. So what was explaining Kisvad is also Shlomo metame. Shlomo was wondering, how is it that a eagle, which is a non-clean bird, is in the Shemayim? That's his wondering. What is Niflu? What is Shlomo Melech wondering on the Derech HaNesher Bashamayim that the eagle is in the Shemayim? He was wondering what is an eagle which is an Oif Tome, what is it doing in the Shemayim B'Bechinas HaMerkava Shalamayla, in the Merkava of above? That's how he explains. So why was Shlomo Melech only wondering about the Nesher? Why didn't he worry about the Aryeh? So the question is known. Why was he only asking about 3? And then the 4th, but Rak Nesher. Why was he only worried about the Nesher? Why was he wondering about the Nesher? It's also an unclean animal. And still, it's Ari is one of the 4 chayes of the Merkava, and he's not saying, well, how come it's there? Why is he only saying derech nesher bashamayim? But now we can understand the idea is the nesher meloshin noshar v'nofal. The word nesher has the same root as fell down, has the foliage come down from its place. So this is the novelty of Nesher over the lion. That even that thought fell down from the higher level, it's still Nesher and it's still Bashamayim. So that's why he was surprised on the Nesher that it's still Bashamayim, v'lo al Aryeh. The Masha Aryehu Bashamayim, the Aryeh, the fact that it's in Merkava Shemaim, Hurak HaShoyresh the Aryeh. That's the root of Aryeh. So that v'lo k'moshe nofel l'mata b'bechinas chayit meya. Taka the chayit meya didn't fall down, then is not surprised. And actually by the shoyer, the pnei shoyer is not a problem because it's not tamek, but the shoyer, the Aryeh, is a tmeya. That's not of his concern. He wasn't surprised about that. Because the Aryeh that's in the Merkava and the Aryeh which is Lamata Chayet Mei are not the same Aryeh, and therefore this Aryeh is Takanat Bashamayim. Is not in the Merkava the Tomatic, and the level of Aryeh which is in the Merkava is a higher level. Now Av Shezeh Gufa. Mashenofal Lamato Kolkach Meira Mailashor. So it shows the fact that he can go down so far, that all the ways from being in the Merkava until being a Chayit Meir, that shows that he's very high level. Kedu Masha Kosu Beitzris HaChayim. That because of the force, the strength of the Kedusha in the Pnei Aryeh Merkava. Lochein, and that's the reason that Nofal Lamato Kol Kach, that's why he fell down so low, Bechinas Tmei Davki, in the level that it became Tomei. So actually, in a way, the Pnei Shoyer didn't turn into Tomei. It's not so high. The Pnei Aryeh is very high, and that's why it became a Tmei Davki. So it points to, it comes from a high place. But once it fell, it's no longer that place. After it fell, it's no longer in the sky. So it's not, this Arya is not Bashamayim. Through the curtains, the covers, and the curtains, and the interruptions that separate the Nofel V'nasa Nifred Mishorsha, he fell and became separated from the root. We say the way of the Nesher B'Shamayim, who that even that which has fallen down is also still in the B'Shamayim. So we're saying that the Neshers, how could the Nesher that fell down and it is a Tmeya, how could it still be Bashamayim, even when it fell down? Unlike the Arya, when here it's not Bashamayim anymore. Bashamayim is another level, but not by the Nesher. Mashenkin derech hanesh b'Shamayim shegam b'shnosh v'nofel kam ki b'Shamayim. Zehu mailas kavam tzoyel kava yamin v'kava smol, because this is the advantage of the middle over the right and the left. Yamin, what happens is yamin mikareves usmel doicha. There's something that we can bring in and something we push away. We have the right and the left, but the middle, left means that some things we can elevate, something we got to push away. But not everything is elevate. But the middle, that takes even things that pushed away and elevates them. This is the difference. This is the advantage of the middle line over the right and the left. Yamin mekareves smil doicha, because the mashi yamin mekareves, what is the right hand brings close, hu mashu mevarer mezacher chumailas dvorim amatorim. That means that he sorts out, he refines, and he elevates things that are permissible. Masha'enkin dvorim ha'asurim, that's the left, you cannot. Ukeshurim b'de'ach, those who are tied in the hands of the outers, hina b'hem smil doicha, over there you got to push away. As opposed to when we look in the middle line, when we come to the level of Rachamim, the middle of Nesher, even that fell, it fell down. That is also still in the heavens. The Zehu Mailus HaTshuva. This is the advantage of Tshuva. Asher HaTshuva mehapeches games as deinos l'kedusha. Tshuva turns this doines to Kedusha. In the beginning, in the beginning, Nasim has doines l'rak l'shgog, is the intentional become like accidental. So then you not mahapich this doines, but in the end, avol tachas tshuva, which is doines nas nepochen l'zochis, that they are turned to zochis. B'zehu that's the advantage of tshuva. Tshuva is the nesher, what fell down, it's still Bashamayim. And that's why Shlomo Melech was wondering, how could it be still Bashamayim? And that is Vizuhi Mailas HaTshuva. This is tshuva. Because we say, okay, Sur Meira, Asei Toiv, left and right. And then you have Bechinas Bakish Sholem V'Rotfeu. Ala avoida the Sur Meira Asei Toiv. Bakish Sholem is an advantage over Sur Meira Asei Toiv. They can only handle things that can be sorted out and brought up and elevated. But then you have the tshuva, which is the Bakish Sholem, which elevates even to the higher level. And now the Rebbe teaches ein the whole pasuk. The Rebbe teaches that mitzad rachmim rabim, mitzad the level of Yaakov, that comes down all the ways to the bottom. So therefore, it's like the string. Yaakov Cheva Nachalosei, we can actually change around, and even though we're in the Eretz Midbar, which is a place where the Eibishter doesn't sit there because there's no Torah mitzvahs, and yet Yimtzaeyu u'b'seyu leil yishimin, and we turn it around. Let's look inside. So this Rebbe sums up now the pasuk. V'zehu K'nesher Ya'ir Kinoi Gomer. Shekoy Adel Ilmenei. This goes on the previous of the Psukim. Pasuk says like this: Kechelek Havaya Amoy Yaakov Cheva Nachala Osa Yimtzeu Beretz Midbar Gomer Yitzrenu Kishin Einay. All these details are one continuous part. Hashem, Yidden are a part of Hashem, all the ways up till Atik. And therefore, Yaakov Cheva Nachalosai, that's the middle line that it goes all the ways down in the rope, even the way it comes down, that it's Yimtzeu Beretz Midbar. He finds them in the Midbar, where desert, not Torah Mitzvahs, is still Yitzrenu Kinshun Einei, turns it around like the light of the eye, the black of the eye, which is the light, to turn around these Doinus Nas Gizochit. Look, the Rebbe teaches. Yaakov hu b'chinas kav ha'imtzoi. Yaakov is the middle line, Kinal, as we talked about before. Sholachenu b'shovim mireshisu v'atzeifei. That's why it's equal from the top to the end. The Zehu, this is also, it's not just Yaakov, also Chavel Nachalose. Shudugmas HaChavel. It's similar to a rope. Shoroisha echad l'mayla v'roisha sheina l'mata. One end is on top and the other one is on the bottom. When you shake the bottom part of the rope, also the top part of the rope shakes. That's the connection, because the connection, the way the neshama is here, the noshad, the way it fell down, it's here, down here, it's still connected with the rope all the way to the top. Since Yaakov is the middle line, that's why he's the rope of Hashem's nachla connected. And then we say Yimtzeu Beretz Midbar. He finds him even in the land of a desert. Midbar hu asher lo yoshev odom sham. Midbar means a desert that man doesn't sit there. Lo yoshev odom sham, and this God means Hashem. Shebechinas odom ha'elyon. The odom ha'elyon, the supreme man, shenim shechadei Torah mitzvos, which is normally comes Adam through Torah mitzvahs, lo yoshav sham. He doesn't sit there because there's no Torah mitzvahs. Ba'afal pikein, and still yimtza'eyu, which means hine mitzad tshuva kam ha'imtzoi yimtza'eyu beretz midbar. He finds him in the land of the desert. He still finds the yid there. Uvesoyu yulel yishimen, and in the howling, in the desolate places, over there in the places where there is no inhabitants, over there you find them. The says, you have to find them over there, because when you're looking for something, the Alter Rebbe explains, you got to find where you lost it. So if you got lost and you're in the desert and you're in the Soihu, in which the hollows of the Yishimen over there, of the animals, but you need to, from there, Yimtzeu finds you from there. And then the pasuk says, Yitzrenu kishin einei. He keeps you like the black of your eye. That's the black of the eye from which the light comes out. That's the idea of his to turn darkness to light. It becomes and Ishin Eine becomes dark, it becomes light, the darkness, the Midbar and the Toyu Lil Shimon are turned over to Ishin Eine. That's the idea, to turn darkness to light. The kasher mahapchin as when you turn darkness to light, meaning that you were in this desert and then you turn around yourself to light. Then there's advantage, there's a greater light. As the advantage of light over darkness. And through this turnaround, and that's why the pasuk continues, K'nשר Ya'ir Kinoi Gomer Yisraהו Abrotto. That mitzad b'chinas K'nשר b'chinas Atik now, because of the level of K'nשר, which is the level of Atik. Shelishom Agia Kav Ha'imtzoi. Over there, the Rebbe said before. I'm not sure why it says here with a question mark. But the Rebbe said before that the Nesher is the middle line, goes all the ways to Atik, versus the other lines which go only to Arich. only to the level of Yud Gimel Tikkun Dikna. Yisraהו al Evrose l'mayla Matero mitzvahs. You carry him on top of the body, which means above to the mitzvahs, slicha v'kapora. That's why there's forgiveness, there's atonement, because even if you failed, but you went up all the ways, they revealed the level of Rachmim Rabim, the level of Knesher, the level of Atik. Until you get from a higher level than Torah mitzvahs, alev rossi, on top of the body. Hashem leads them all by himself. There's no other ones there. There's no, there's just over there, it's a level where it's just Yidden. Yisrael Malka Bil Chadoy, the Yidden alone with Hashem, V'yu L'chol Levatcha. And they're just for you, which is Yisrael Malka Bil Chadoy, which is the Yidden and the Egrishter by themselves. And that's the level where the Slicha comes for, and that's through Tshuva, and that's the Yisraelis, and that's the Knesher, Yorkine, and that's the Rachim Rav, this level of Atik. And all this takes place through Tshuva, and you get to come to a place where it's just the Eden with the Eberster, Hashem Bodeg and Chena, Benima Kel Necher, Yisrael Malka Bil Chidoi.